And I totally forgot to play this video, so I'm going to play it now. All right, now we are live.
I love it.
Like a new intro video?
I love it. That's very awesome.
I just forget to press the play button. So
Yeah.
thank you, Paige. So awesome. Well, I'm really excited. I mean, for those of you that join us every single week, I'm sure you've seen Jaybee Hawkins on our Winners Wednesday, where we have special guests every single week. Jaybee and Ruben usually join us once a month. Ruben from North Carolina and Jaybee from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Unfortunately, Ruben is at a conference. Good for him this week. I heard it's going well. Talked to him this morning.
Yes.
But Jaybee, I'm excited for today's topic because it is one that, as a real estate agent, I think we should be well versed, not only in helping buyers and sellers, but also from real estate investing, which I know is something that you and I both, and including Ruben, are really passionate about. And one of the biggest things of really creating legacy, which is the theme of our entire group, and creating wealth is, tax deferring and wealth building. And so that goes with 1031 tax exchanges. So that is the subject today, is really how to set up a 1031 tax exchange. What is it? Is it a difficult process? The list goes on and on and on. So just real briefly, Jaybee, do you mind kind of giving us a brief overview of your background, not only as a real estate agent, but also as a real estate investor, and some of the things that you've learned over the last couple of years and kind of changed as far as your investing plan and your long-term wealth building?
Sure. So thank you, Micah, for that introduction. I'm always super excited to talk about investing. I am pretty much a new investor. I mean, I started investing in 2019. It kind of dawned on me as a real estate agent. I had helped a ton of clients invest in rental properties or flips, and I was really good at finding the deal. And I was really good to have some mentors that really helped me, learn about how they evaluate the property and all those things. So in 2019, we kind of did it together. We started flipping properties, and we also started purchasing rentals. So, I'm relatively new, but it is a huge part of my life now. It's 2023 and it's August. I have flipped 6 homes this year. I love that part of the business. And we have 2 rentals, and we're in the process of buying 2 more that are going to close in the next 30 days. We also have a commercial building. And then we also have a storage facility, which I could talk about storage all day long, but that is for a different call.
Hey, yeah, no, I think that might be a future call. Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're watching this live, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, a heart. Let us know in the comments section if you're in real estate investing as well. I think every real estate agent should be an investor at some point. I mean, we're teaching other people how to build wealth and how to build legacy, and that's through real estate, right? And so we should definitely do it ourselves. Now, my understanding, Jaybee, is you kind of went from kind of that natural progression, just like we did, of single family flipping. Then you got, into some commercial, and then now the storage units. Now with that, of course, as you start flipping and as you start making some capital gains, then you start being strategic in terms of tax deferring, things like that. Quick disclaimer: we are not accountants. We are not legal professionals. So definitely seek professional advice. We're only giving you the experience that we both have personally experienced in working with investments and tax deferments and things like that. So what was kind of triggered you to say, okay, this has become profitable. I don't want to give everything away to Uncle Sam. How can I start leveraging that and get into the 1031 tax exchanges?
So initially, my husband and I started with flipping. And so we got that down. We learned how to do that. And with that, we learned how to acquire big chunks of money. I mean, we had not ever flipped a house before. And so we were like, oh, great. We got really good at making the money. Now what? I think you're right. Like, it is a progression.
Right.
And I cannot stress enough, like, have people in your life. I'm happy to be one of them that you can bounce ideas off of. Or I call Micah for advice all the time. But when I started doing this, I didn't know. I didn't know about 1031, not like I do now. So you just have to be educated and get in a conversation with people who have already done it. When I originally called Micah, I thought it was going to be this really overwhelming process, and it was so easy. I actually did my first 1031 to purchase another rental, and then my second one I was able to purchase the storage facility. So I'm doing two more right now. So, man, it's just one of those things that once you learn it, it's very easy. It is, like Micah said, just being really strategic. So it's worked out well so far.
Well, and I think, like you said, education is key. Who you surround yourself with is key. We're the same way, right? Before I did 1031 tax exchanges, then I was like, oh my gosh, it seems like such a daunting task. How am I ever going to do this? We found a great, what they call intermediary, which you need one that gives you all the timelines, all the instructions. It makes it a super easy and less painful process. So what is a 1031? Basically, you're deferring the taxes. So let's say, for example, if you flip a property and you make $100,000 in net profit, now you can go take that and flip it into another property and not have to pay the capital gains. Now, eventually, as you keep going along, there's probably at some point you're just deferring it. So you're going to have to pay taxes at some point. You're not necessarily getting away from it, but not having to pay that tax immediately. I think there's a lot of misconceptions in terms of how, what type of properties can you purchase? I know, there's a lot of misconceptions in terms of the timelines. I know for us, since we got our intermediary, I mean, we do multiple a year, and it's like you said, it's super, super easy. And I think there's one time that we couldn't find a replacement property, so we just paid the penalty and moved on, because the key to being a good investor is you don't buy just to buy, which I know that we had that conversation as well. So let's talk about where do I get started? So I have a property, maybe I'm closing on it. We know that you need to set up the 1031 before you close on the property that you're going to be deferring the taxes on. So that's step number one.
Yes.
I've literally done it like 2 days before closing. So
it's I just like scooted it in there last minute on this last one. I was like, I have to.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, closing on Friday. How quick can we get this done? And they're like, oh,
yeah.
So you do want to set up the 1031 tax exchange before you close on the property that you're deferring the taxes to. Okay. So we've done that. We found an intermediary. If you need one, reach out to Jaybee or myself. We'd be happy to help you. Our intermediary works all over the country. Because I've actually deferred, I've done 1031 tax exchange across state lines. But okay, so have an intermediary. I've set it up. I'm closing on a property. What's the first step?
Well, you have to, that money goes to them. And then
an escrow account, right? Essentially
an escrow account. Yes. And you have 45 days to identify another property. So for me, this is always the most stressful part. I've done it 3 times now. And the first time I was like, oh, I have 45 days.
Well, no, it goes fast.
Life goes really fast. And before I knew it, I get an email from the company and they're like, oh, you have 15 days left. And I'm like, ah. So, you're scrambling to find a deal. So just note to everyone watching, don't wait. Now I've gotten in the habit of when I close, I am immediately looking for my next property.
Yeah, I even start looking before I close. And I know when we were getting into like a multi-million-dollar project where there was, quite a bit of money involved, I think that's all I did every day for 12, 14 hours was researching the entire
Yes.
market. The market at that time was kind of slim of what's available. So yes, step number one, do not wait 45 days. Will go like that. Now, JB, you said something that was key. You identify within 45 days. So that doesn't mean you have to close within 45 days, right? You're just identifying. Now, I believe you can actually identify up to 3 properties. So I always say it's good to have a couple backups.
Yes.
Even if you're not even contracted on those properties, I think it's a good idea. So you've identified, or you're in that identification stage of 45 days. What are some of the strategic moves that you use to make sure that you're finding replacements?
So I'm scouring the MLS. I know as an investor, even I can say this as a realtor, you've got to be looking outside of the MLS, but I do use that as a tool. I am on commercial sites. I am calling all of my investor friends, including wholesalers, and I am just putting it out there. Hey, I'm looking for a property, whatever. That's actually how I found the storage. Is I literally called everybody in my circle in Tulsa, and somebody called me back one day and was like, "Hey, so and so's friend has a storage for sale." Um, and so, I'm really reaching out to the people that I have connections and relationships with, whether they be realtors or investors themselves, and people kind of they forget that that's a resource. Like,
Right.
why would you call another investor? Well, because your criteria might be different. Everybody's criteria is a little bit different. So they might have come across a deal that doesn't quite fit what they're trying to do in that moment. It would fit perfectly into what you're trying to do. So investors, wholesalers, MLS, Facebook groups, I'm I'm reaching them all. And I do spend a good amount of my time doing that each week.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that's a good point. And I like that you said that you reach out to your sphere as well. You're not just, looking at what's on the MLS. And I think be open-minded, right? We had that conversation about a month ago. I know when we sold our apartment complex and I was looking for a replacement, I didn't know I was going to start buying restaurants. I had absolutely no idea. But then something came across my desk. It was an absolute net deal. Then the cap rate made sense in terms of what the return on investment would be. And then we ended up purchasing the 2 next door, right? So I think that's, you got to be open, especially when you're on those tight timelines, because if you miss it, you miss it. I think aside from like a catastrophe, I know there was a time they extended mine because of, I think, some tornadoes or something going on in Oklahoma. But aside from something like that, they're pretty tight timelines. I also like that you mentioned reaching out to your sphere, because even for me, like, one of the first things I do is I go put it on social media, including like Facebook. And I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. And I can't tell you how many times I have found deals. When people say they don't use social media for business, I have made so much money just from Facebook, utilizing my sphere on there and being like, this is what I'm looking for. What do you have? Or this is what I have. Do you have anyone interested? And some of our best deals have come off market from Facebook. So
Absolutely. I'm the same. And I feel like that just goes back to, like, we tell our realtors on our team this, that go work your business. You're planting seeds all along the way, but you've got to go plant those seeds. So that's kind of what I'm able to do. And so are you with social media, with just reaching out to my realtor friends. Hey, if you've got anything coming, distressed property, needs a lot of work, seller doesn't have the money, call me. I'm a buyer. And they do. But I constantly am like, hey, do you have anything? But I do reach out to a lot of people. So
right.
that is very critical in this process.
Absolutely. So we've set up, through an intermediary, we've closed on the property, and then we've got 45 days to identify, and then 6 months, 180 days essentially to close, right? So that's kind of the timeline. When you have a good intermediary, at least the experience that we've had, as JB mentioned, there's like automations that they'll remind you, hey, you've got 25 days, you've got 15 days, you're coming up in 5 days. Can you identify? I mean, I have identified to the last second
Same.
And you have to,
It's a
right?
little nerve-wracking.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, and then, what stinks is when the seller knows you're doing a 1031 and then they try like, boost up the price on you last minute.
Yeah.
So I've had that happen too.
Yeah.
So, we keep talking about, intermediary. They call them QIs, qualified intermediary. What exactly, I mean, just from your perspective, who is that person and why do they play such a crucial role?
Well, for me, it's just I don't really know how to answer that other than because I'm so new to this. It's just this company that allows me to defer. They really do take care of everything. They're communicating with my title, with my lender. They're keeping the timeline straight. And so, like I said, it is a really easy process. When I identify a property and I have a contract, I just simply send it over to that company. I CC my lender, I CC my title, and then they have got it all handled from there.
Yeah. So they're
Outside
basically the
of that,
middleman, right?
yes, exactly. Yeah, and it's great. They handle everything. They communicate with the title. They communicate with my lender. And so I'm just really, it's very easy. I can't stress this enough. I was really overwhelmed and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this 1031. What if I mess it up? I must have called you like 3 times and was like, no, Micah. And I was making it such a bigger deal than it really was.
Right.
So,
And that's why I wanted to do this, subject today, because I think until you do it, you think it is.
yeah.
And like I said, you can replace properties with like kind, which doesn't mean you sold a house, you buy a house. You could sell a house and buy land. You could sell land and buy a commercial strip center. You could sell an apartment complex and buy a restaurant, right? So that's what they kind of consider like kind. And I've even done it across state borders, right? I think the last time we sold a house in Mississippi, then I went and purchased another building or land in Florida, and then a building in Oklahoma City. So it kind of bounced around. So again, check with your accountant and CPA, but just, sharing our personal experiences. So, like I said, if you have any questions as far as, a great intermediary, would be happy to share the one that I think we both use the same person.
Yes.
What other, just kind of closing thoughts or advice do you have for people that are kind of considering it, or agents, honestly, that just want to educate themselves, even for their clients, to be able to add that to their tool belt?
I think it just goes back to get in a room where there's full of people that are doing what you're wanting to do. Here locally in Tulsa, I can tell you that there's investor meetups every week. There's, Facebook is such a great source because I'm the first person, if I see somebody, post on Facebook and they're like, closed on my 30th rental. Well, I'm not there and I want to be there. So I'm always curious because everybody does things a little bit differently or they have different strategies. So I had no issues messaging that person and just asking, "Hey, I'd love to buy you coffee," or "Hey, do you have a quick time to jump on the phone? I'd like to pick your brain about your rentals. Congratulations, 30. That's awesome." So I think you've just got to ask a lot of questions. And I've read a lot of investing books over the past couple of years, but there is nothing like getting to talk to somebody who's actually done it.
Right.
So, ask them, offer them. I'm a big believer in if you're going to ask them, make sure that you can bring something to the table too. See how you can help their business or what you can do for them.
Right.
Because time is money, and if I'm going to take somebody's time, I want to be respectful of that and see how I can help them as well. So I just think it's in getting in conversations with people that are doing what you're doing. Storage is a perfect example. That was not even on my radar until a year and a half ago. And we purchased one and I'm looking for another one right now. And I just got in rooms. I went to a storage conference. I read a book. I talked to a guy who was doing it already and got like the Cliff Notes. I'm a Cliff Notes kind of person.
I am too. Like, just tell me what I need to do.
Yeah. So I think that's really the most important part if you're looking to get in investing. And listen, I'm 44. I did not start investing until I was 40 years old. So it's like you can start a little bit later in life. It's okay. My husband and I have had a lot of momentum and a lot of traction just in the 4 years. So it's never too late to start, and just get educated about it.
Awesome. I love it. That's great advice. Thank you so much, JB, for jumping on today and just kind of sharing your experience. And hopefully we've kind of inspired some people to get into investing themselves and kind of, looking at building their own wealth and their own legacy. Because I will always be a firm believer that there's no better investment than in real estate. So
Absolutely. I would agree.
awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.